Hello everyone, my name is Jamie and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about my top 10 books that I have read in 2023 so far. I love doing like mid-year, beginning of year, end of year videos, so of course I'm going to use like any excuse to talk about the books that I have loved so far this year. If you're a regular watcher of my channel, you will probably know what's coming, but like I said, any excuse to talk about my faves. We have a bit of a mix of genres, so I really hope you enjoy the video and I hope that you get some good recommendations, and let's just get started. This is in no particular order, by the way. This is just, I've just pulled things from my bookshelf. First of all, I want to talk about Here for the Right Reasons by Jodie McAllister. This is such a hidden gem of a novel. I read this for a 24-hour readathon that I did with my patrons. I didn't end up posting the vlog on my main channel because I was really insecure about it. My patrons have seen it. They got the goods. But this is why this book hasn't been spoken about on my channel all that much. But like, trust me when I say this is such a hidden gem. So, this is a romance set in Australia, and basically it's about our main character who loses her job due to the pandemic, and so she gets really drunk and decides to apply for a dating show. She gets in, but she's absolutely terrible in front of the cameras. But her and the like love interest, he's the lead of this like bachelor type dating show, they end up sparking up like this really beautiful friendship and eventually falling in love behind the scenes. It was so fun. I will put a warning out there that COVID and the pandemic is a massive kind of theme and backdrop of this novel, and I know that a lot of people aren't quite ready to read about that time in history, very recent history just yet, especially when it's still impacting people. I will put that out there, but for me this was like, I don't know, it was really nice escapism, and it was like, it kind of, I don't know, it made me feel better about what we as the world has gone through in the past couple of years. I thought the romance was incredibly well written, really well developed, and I loved our two main characters so much. Like, the pacing of this book is some of the best pacing I have seen in a romance ever, and all of the side characters were so fun. I think I just loved this so much because it was set on a reality TV like dating show, and those are my guilty pleasure, so it genuinely felt like this book was written for me. But I really loved it, and I barely hear anyone talk about it, so if you are interested, I really highly recommend picking it up. The next book I want to mention is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. This is a, I guess, literary fiction horror kind of novel set in Japan. This book was incredibly heartbreaking. Like, it was so disturbing and fucked up, but I loved the writing style so much. It kept me on the edge of my seat. It's very dark, so definitely like look up the content warnings before diving in. It's the cutesy cover definitely doesn't do the story justice or really paint an accurate portrayal of what we're about to read about. But we follow our main character Natsuki, who has gone through a lot of trauma in her childhood, and due to this, her response is to believe that she is not a human. She believes she's an alien from outer space, so she kind of does everything she can to get back to her home planet along with her cousin, who she also believes is an alien. Basically, it's just a really heart-wrenching story about our main character being really isolated from society because of everything that she's been through. I thought the writing style was absolutely beautiful. I don't understand how they managed to paint this really awful, kind of horrific story into this like fairy tale with like whimsy, even though we're discussing like really awful stuff. The writing style, yeah, it was just beautiful. It was completely unmatched, and I really loved this book, but definitely go in knowing that we're going to be dealing with some pretty traumatic stuff. There is also some body horror as well, but I found the gore side of things to be not that intense, but I don't know, everyone's levels of what they're okay with is different. But I still really do recommend this novel. Next, of course, I have to mention the book that I've probably cried at the most this year, and that is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. This is the final installment in the Good Girls Guide to Murder series, and I absolutely ate this up. I loved it so much. This was the perfect finale to an already incredible series. The series itself is just so much fun. We follow our main character Pip as she creates this true crime podcast for a school project, and she ends up trying to solve all of these kind of murder mysteries that have happened in her small town in England. I just really loved it. I think they're so well done. And yes, they're YA, but Holly Jackson writes with such maturity that it doesn't feel like I'm reading YA at all. Not that reading YA is a bad thing, but it just doesn't feel like YA. I don't know if I'm explaining that well, but it's just so good. It's so addicting, and this final installment pulled at my heartstrings in all the right ways. I literally could feel my heart like beating. Like, I have never been anxious and nervous in a good way when reading a book, and I was anxious and nervous in a good way when reading this one. It almost was a little too much. Like, I was genuinely terrified, and the ending was perfect. I know not a lot of people would love the ending, but I just thought it was realistic and just excellent. It made me cry all the tears, and anything that emotionally impacts me like that is a 5 stars in my eyes. So yeah, really loved this one. Next we have my favorite book that I have read so far this year, which I read back in February, which is crazy. But if you have seen my mid-year book freakout tag already, you'll know what book this is, and that is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I absolutely loved this book. I actually read this for my very first episode for my Reading My Physical TBR series that I started in the beginning of the year, and I was just completely blown away. This was a 5-star read for me. Basically, this is a second chance romance. We follow our two main characters, Eva and Shane. They're both writers, and they had this really intense connection when they were teenagers. Now they're adults and they lost contact. 15 years later, they get back in touch, and we get to watch them fall in love again for the second time. But there are obviously lots of obstacles that they need to overcome. I just found this book to be incredibly beautiful. Both the main characters were just excellent. Everything that they had been through, like, it just again pulled at my heartstrings. Any book that pulls at my heartstrings, like, you know it's gonna be good. I also really liked the representation of Eva's chronic illness. I thought that was done really, really well, and just a beautiful soulmate story, and I absolutely loved it. So if you are going to take any recommendation from this video, please can it be 7 Days in June, because it's just fantastic. Next, another one that you guys definitely should see coming. It is Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber. I have not shut up about this book this year, I swear to God. But this is a YA fantasy, and it single-handedly got me back into fantasy as a genre. I kind of had a hiatus from fantasy for like a couple of years, and now I'm like right back into the swing of things. I absolutely love fantasy again, and I have this book to thank. Like, it genuinely threw me head first back into the genre. This is the first book in a YA series. I don't even know how to describe the plot, because I swear to God so much happens. I feel like whenever I describe it, I literally describe the first 50 pages of the book, because genuinely the plot is so like filled to the brim with things, but it's never confusing, it's never convoluted, it's never too much. It's just so well paced, and it feels like this whimsical fairy tale, and I just have so much fun when I read these books. I genuinely feel like it just heals my inner child, because I've read so much dark shit recently. Like, I am in love with thrillers. I'm in love with these like heartbreaking romances. I have read some really like nasty books, which I love. Time and a place, love them, but this kind of like heals the side of me that like loves those dark things. It's just so great. It just twists and turns at every corner. Our main character is like such a classic YA fantasy heroine, but she manages to like not annoy me, and I feel like Stephanie Garber has done a fantastic job in that respect. I really love this book, and I really highly recommend this series. I cannot wait to read the third and final installment in the trilogy in October. Speaking of like nasty books, I loved Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. This is a book about a nasty woman. Our narrator is, yeah. So if Once Upon a Broken Heart heals my inner child, this one is like looking into a mirror at like all of my flaws, like at looking into a mirror of my worst self. I related to this book in a way that I did not want to. Like, it was hard to read, but I loved it. I loved it so much. And this also kind of healed me in a sense as well, because I think I needed to read these things to be like, oh, that's not good. Basically, this is a literary fiction about a woman who gets into a relationship where she is just obsessed with him. She puts him on a pedestal above anyone else, and because of this like obsessive infatuation and love that she has, she kind of gets a bit silly. Her behavior is not the best, and we kind of see her downfall, I would say, or like even her recovery. It's a very like character-based novel. Like, it's definitely not so much about the plot, it's definitely more about our character and how they develop in their journey, but she's definitely not someone to like aspire to be, which is why I think reading it was so difficult, because I was like, oh, like I know we're supposed to hate this woman, but oh, me vibes. Don't want there to be me vibes, but me vibes sometimes. Not in every single way, but there were moments where I was like, oh shit, that is my inner monologue that I have sometimes. Oh, I can't believe I'm being so honest with you guys. Like, I really shouldn't relate to this book the way that I do, but I loved it. I thought the writing was really, really beautiful, even though we're dealing with such a unfortunate main character. I really love an unlikable main character. I love an unreliable narrator, and that's exactly who this woman is. So it was just like everything that I love about fiction, and the liberties that you can take with storytelling and fiction put into one novel, and I thought it was really, really beautiful. So I will definitely be recommending this book and thinking about it for years to come. Next we have another new absolute favorite book of all time. That is The Cat Who Saved Books by Sosuke Natsukawa. This is a beautiful, beautiful little Japanese novel about our main character who inherits his granddad's secondhand bookshop, and there he meets a talking tabby cat who takes him on 3 big adventures to try and save books from people who are mistreating them. This is a book that just made me so happy. It was so comforting. It was like a big bear hug. I loved it so much. The writing was so beautiful, and I genuinely think anyone out there who loves reading, who loves books, should read this novel, because there are so many beautiful lessons to learn about how we read and how we consume stories. It really made me see things differently, I think, especially being a creator who makes book content. There are so many discourses that we could have about bookish content creation, but I feel like this book really does sum up a lot of the criticisms that people have about the book sphere on social media. And I don't know, I really loved it. It definitely just made me see things very differently, especially because books are my job essentially. So I don't know, it was just a really refreshing read. I really loved this. The writing style was just beautiful. Yeah, especially if you're a cat lover as well. I'm a sucker for a talking cat, absolute sucker for a talking cat. So this was definitely very up my alley, and definitely has earned its spot as one of my top 10 books of 2023 so far. Next we have another book that I cannot shut up about, and that is Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. You guys definitely should have seen this coming if you watch my videos regularly, because I cannot stop talking about this book. I absolutely love it. But basically this is a sapphic romance. We follow our main characters Delilah and Claire. It's all set at a wedding for Delilah's stepsister and one of Claire's best friends, and Delilah hasn't got the best relationship with her family, so she has to go back to this wedding, and there she kind of blossoms this relationship with Claire, who is someone that Delilah felt mistreated her back when they were kids and teenagers. It was such a beautiful journey this book took me on. The things that our characters were going through and what they've gone through in the past, and how it was all kind of, they got the closure that they needed in this novel. Like, the character development was so good. The small town setting was amazing. All of the side characters, like, that is one way to sell a series to me, is because this is the first book in a series, and all of the side characters were beautiful. So Ashley Herring Blake, what a businesswoman, because now I'm gonna go and buy all of her books to read about all these separate side characters. They were so well done. I can't think of a single fault in this novel. I loved it so much. Genuinely, it is such a good romance. It is so amazing. Next, I really want to talk about Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. I read this for a video. I did my Pink Books reading vlog. I read this for that reading vlog and absolutely fell in love. 5 stars immediately. This is a contemporary novel about our main character Queenie, who's currently going through a breakup, and her just kind of living in the aftermath of that and kind of getting her life together after she feels it's all kind of been torn apart. I loved this book because, again, it was one of those things where it was really relatable. It was like looking in a mirror. The way it was written, it just felt really cool. Like, it felt really real and really current, and especially because I'm the same age as the main characters in here, so it kind of just felt like I was reading about friends. Of course, there are definitely ways that I cannot relate to this book because our main character Queenie is black, so we do see her go through a whole bunch of microaggressions in the novel, and we do have some really important discussions about race and a lot of things to do with that, like when white men will fetishize black women, and also the Black Lives Matter movement and how people talk about race. It really gave the book a lot of depth while a lot of the book was still very light-hearted. I just found it really good. I feel like if you're someone who has gone through a breakup recently, this book will make you feel seen, but also make you feel like there is light at the end of the tunnel, because trust me, I know how awful breakups can be, but I loved it so much. I loved it so much, and I again really recommend this novel. And the final book I'm going to talk about is a book that I read on my Kindle, and that is Mile High by Liz Tom Ford. This is a book I read on Kindle Unlimited. I think this is probably my most recent read out of everything that I'm talking about, and this again was my perfect romance. It was so good. This is like an enemies to lovers, kind of forbidden love, slow burn romance following our main characters Stevie and Xanders. Stevie's a flight attendant and Xanders is a hockey player, and Stevie has been hired to work on the hockey team's private jet during the season. It was just so great. Like, I loved the slow burn of it all. I loved our main characters. Xanders definitely feels like a main character who, when I first started reading it, I was like, I'm gonna hate this guy. He's so arrogant. He's so like douchebaggy. I'm gonna hate him so much. And I actually just love them both so much, and their relationship was so good. One of my favorite things about Stevie is that on her days off, she volunteered at a dog shelter, and so we get to see a lot of like dog content. And now that I'm a new dog mom, all I can think about is dogs. Like, I'm 100% a dog person now, to the point where it's like unhealthy. All of my social media now, all of my TikTok For You page is just dogs. So seeing the dog content in this book, I was like, my heart. Like, if you're gonna want to make me root for a couple, it's have them be dog people and get a dog. I loved this book. There was so much that is good about it. I cannot wait to read the rest of the series. I totally understand the hype when it comes to this book now. It's so good. And Kindle Unlimited, go download it, guys. Go download it and read it. It's like nearly 700 pages, but still incredible. So those are all the 10 books that I wanted to share with you today. My top 10 reads in 2023 so far. Please let me know if you guys have a top 10, or if you have a favorite book that you've read this year so far. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my opinions. I always love to hear what you guys have to say. A cheeky reminder that all my socials are linked down below, along with my Patreon. So if you do want a lot of extra content from me, all of that information is on the page. And yeah, guys, again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for spending 15 to 20 minutes with me just then. I love you all, and I will see you very soon in the next video.